Jay Cutler entered the early 2000s as the only bodybuilder capable of challenging Ronnie Coleman, but the rivalry took a toll on his body and momentum. After finally securing the Mr. Olympia title in 2006 and defending it in 2007, Cutler suffered a major setback in 2008. His conditioning declined sharply during prep, especially in back detail and leg separation, leading to a performance that judges considered his weakest in years. Dexter Jackson defeated him decisively, and analysts widely believed Cutler's era was over. Losing the title in bodybuilding isn't just symbolic. It usually signals irreversible decline because athletes struggle to surpass younger competitors while managing accumulated injuries. Cutler approached 2009 differently, rebuilding his prep strategy from the ground up. He increased his off-season weight but maintained strict control over water retention. He redesigned his leg training to regain quad sweep and density, a crucial factor he had lost. He also implemented a refined carbohydrate loading process during peak week to avoid the flat appearance that hurt him previously. On the Olympia stage, his muscle fullness, separation, and stage aggression were dramatically improved. The quad stomp pose became an iconic moment, symbolizing his return to dominance. His 2009 victory remains the most significant comeback in modern bodybuilding history. Flex Wheeler's downfall began with severe health complications that directly threatened his life and ended his competitive career. At the peak of his abilities in the late 1990s, Wheeler was considered one of the most genetically gifted bodybuilders ever, with unmatched symmetry, taper, and presentation. However, in 1999, he was diagnosed with focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, FSGS, a progressive kidney disease that severely limits the body's ability to filter waste. This condition prevented him from maintaining the extreme training volume and high-protein diet required for professional bodybuilding. As his kidneys weakened, Wheeler underwent multiple surgeries and long periods of recovery. His physique deteriorated rapidly, and by the early 2000s, he could no longer compete at an elite level. His kidney function declined so significantly that he ultimately required a transplant, marking a complete collapse of his bodybuilding career. Years later, Wheeler attempted an unprecedented return by preparing for the classic physique division at the 2017 Mr. Olympia. To compete, he rebuilt muscle tissue under medically restricted conditions, focusing on controlled training intensity and precise nutrient timing that would not exceed renal limits. Despite these constraints, he regained enough size and conditioning to appear competitive. Although he did not win, his return demonstrated technical mastery and resilience. Wheeler later faced further complications, including the amputation of his right leg, but his comeback remains one of the most medically challenging in bodybuilding history. Victor Martinez's collapse began with a combination of legal issues, injuries, and immigration complications that halted his career at its peak. After placing second to Jay Cutler at the 2007 Mr. Olympia, Martinez was widely considered the future champion due to his balanced structure, round muscle bellies, and strong lower body development. However, in 2008, he suffered a severe patellar tendon tear during a warm-up set, an injury that requires reconstructive surgery and long-term rehabilitation. This injury dramatically reduced his quad mass and compromised leg symmetry, making it difficult to return to his former proportions. While recovering, Martinez became entangled in legal problems related to business ownership. In 2011, he was arrested at an airport for immigration violations, which led to months of detention and the threat of deportation. The prolonged inactivity caused significant muscle loss and regression in his conditioning. Martinez returned in 2012 under highly restricted conditions, with limited training and inconsistent access to nutrition during his legal battles. Despite this, he regained competitive size, improved his quad sweep, and restored his trademark fullness in the chest and delts. In 2013, he won the Arnold Classic Europe, demonstrating a complete career recovery under adverse circumstances. His ability to reestablish stage presence, density, and symmetry after injuries and incarceration solidified his reputation as one of the most resilient athletes in modern bodybuilding. Ronnie Coleman's downfall began with the cumulative damage caused by extreme training loads performed over many years. Coleman regularly executed maximal effort lifts, such as 800-pound squats and 2,300-pound leg presses, as part of his standard routine rather than occasional demonstrations. These repeated high-force movements produced chronic compression in the lumbar spine and deterioration of intervertebral discs. By the mid-2000s, he developed severe nerve impingement, affecting the legs, reducing strength and stability. After losing the Mr. Olympia title in 2006, Coleman's structural damage progressed rapidly. He underwent multiple spinal surgeries, including fusions and disc repairs, which restricted mobility and compromised the neural pathways controlling lower body musculature. Post-surgery scar tissue and hardware complications further limited function, eventually leaving him reliant on crutches and reducing his capacity for hypertrophy training. Despite these limitations, Coleman launched a sustained comeback, not to competitive bodybuilding, but to public physical culture. He rebuilt muscle density wherever possible through controlled machine-based training designed to minimize spinal compression. He also expanded his supplement company, re-established a presence at expos, and maintained consistent training footage to demonstrate continued resilience. His ability to regain functional mass after invasive surgeries, combined with his return to public influence, reclassified him from a retired athlete to an enduring symbol of work ethic and adaptation. Coleman's comeback is defined not by competitive return, but by reasserting relevance and physical capability in the aftermath of near-total physical breakdown. Kevin Levrone's collapse began after his 2003 competitive season, when chronic injuries and declining recovery capacity forced him to withdraw from the bodybuilding circuit. Throughout his earlier career, Levrone trained with unusually high intensity, often performing heavy compound movements with minimal warm-up. This approach generated exceptional muscle density, but caused cumulative damage to tendons and connective tissues, especially in the chest and shoulders. By the early 2000s, he experienced persistent joint inflammation and partial tears that limited his ability to maintain the pressing strength required for upper body fullness. As these issues progressed, Levrone's stage conditioning declined, and he eventually retired from competition without announcing a long-term comeback plan. During retirement, his body weight dropped significantly, and he lost substantial muscle volume due to reduced training workload and a shift toward acting and music endeavors. More than a decade later, Levrone initiated a return that challenged typical physiological expectations for aging athletes. Beginning in 2016, he rebuilt muscle tissue from a detrained baseline, focusing on gradual load progression and isolation-based hypertrophy to protect compromised joints. He also implemented precise carbohydrate cycling and reduced training frequency to improve recovery. Despite being over 50 years old and far from peak condition, he returned to the Mr. Olympia stage, displaying restored upper body roundness and recognizable shape. Although he did not place competitively, the comeback demonstrated the ability to regain substantial muscle mass after extended detraining and severe joint deterioration, making it one of the most atypical returns in bodybuilding history. Arnold Schwarzenegger's collapse occurred not during his competitive prime, but later in life, when a combination of political, personal, and health setbacks significantly damaged his public standing and physical capabilities. Following his tenure as governor of California, Schwarzenegger faced a highly publicized marital scandal in 2011 that resulted in substantial reputational loss and the dissolution of long-standing business relationships. Simultaneously, aging and prior cardiac issues, stemming from a congenital bicuspid aortic valve, led to multiple heart surgeries, including valve replacement procedures that temporarily limited his ability to maintain muscle mass and cardiovascular performance. These medical interventions required strict restrictions on training intensity, blood pressure fluctuations, and heavy resistance work, causing visible reductions in size and conditioning. His comeback was defined by a systematic restoration of his physical presence and influence. He returned to controlled hypertrophy training using moderate loads, high-volume circuits, and strict heart rate management to rebuild muscle safely. He re-entered the film industry with roles requiring improved physique presentation, prompting careful diet structuring based on lean protein, moderate carbohydrates, and reduced saturated fat to accommodate cardiac limitations. Additionally, Schwarzenegger re-established global relevance through fitness advocacy, producing educational material on training principles and longevity. This multifaceted return, balancing physical rebuilding, public rehabilitation, and renewed leadership in fitness, restored his status as an influential figure despite earlier career and personal collapse. Lee Priest's downfall began when conflicts with bodybuilding organizations resulted in him being suspended and eventually banned from the IFBB. His issues centered on public criticism of judging standards, federation decisions, and athlete treatment. Priest often made direct statements that challenged official leadership, which led to disciplinary actions. His suspension removed him from all IFBB-sanctioned events, eliminating access to major competitions, sponsorship opportunities, and international exposure. During this period, Priest's career momentum collapsed. Without the ability to compete at the highest level, his income dropped, and he stepped away from the competitive circuit entirely. His body weight fluctuated significantly during this time, often gaining large amounts of off-season mass that further distanced him from stage-ready conditioning. His comeback occurred through a different federation, requiring an alternative qualification pathway and a full physical rebuild. Competing under Naba, Priest returned to structured training focused on restoring density in the deltoids, arms, and chest, his key strengths. He implemented strict caloric control, reducing his high off-season body weight to regain symmetry and waistline tightness. Training frequency was increased to improve separation in the quads and back. The result was his 2013 NABA Mr. Universe victory, where he displayed restored proportions and trademark arm development. This win re-established his competitive relevance despite being removed from the IFBB, demonstrating that he could achieve elite condition following years of organizational conflict and detraining. Dorian Yates's collapse began near the end of his competitive career, when a series of major muscle tears significantly compromised his physique and training capacity. Throughout the mid-1990s, Yates relied on extremely heavy, low-volume blood and guts training, which produced unmatched density but placed severe stress on connective tissues. He suffered a torn biceps in 1994 and a triceps tear in 1997, both of which reduced arm symmetry and limited his ability to perform compound movements. The injuries were compounded by chronic spinal compression resulting from maximal effort rowing and deadlifting. By his final Olympia appearance in 1997, Yates competed with visible tears and structural damage, leading to his immediate retirement after winning his 6th title. Post-retirement, his physical condition declined further because the injuries prevented him from maintaining former strength levels or continuing high-intensity training. Yates's comeback did not involve returning to competition, but redefining his role within the bodybuilding world. He shifted toward rehabilitative training, emphasizing controlled movements, reduced load, and mobility work to preserve function around damaged tissue. He regained muscular balance through modified hypertrophy programming and maintained a lean, athletic structure despite his limitations. Yates also re-emerged as an influential educator, promoting evidence-based training, recovery methods, and mental development practices. His return to public influence and ability to maintain a high physical standard after career-ending injuries established him as a long-term authority figure rather than a retired champion, marking a successful post-collapse resurgence. Shawn Rhoden's collapse occurred after winning the 2018 Mr. Olympia title, when he was accused of a serious criminal offense that resulted in him being barred from competition. The allegations led to immediate suspension of his IFBB Pro League status and removal of eligibility for all sanctioned events, including Olympia qualification. Although he maintained innocence and contested the charges, the legal case immobilized his career. Without the ability to compete, Rhoden lost sponsorships, income streams, and structured competitive preparation. The prolonged legal process created instability in training consistency, dietary planning, and long-term periodization. These disruptions led to fluctuations in his conditioning, muscle fullness, and weight management, preventing him from assembling the physique required to defend his title. Despite external pressures, Rhoden initiated a controlled rebuilding process to preserve his physique for a potential return. He adjusted training intensity to prioritize joint health and minimize cortisol spikes linked to stress, using moderate volume hypertrophy sessions to maintain muscle tissue. He also implemented refined carbohydrate timing to retain fullness without relying on extreme peak week cycles. Public appearances showed restored roundness in the delts, improved midsection control, and a maintained V-taper, indicating deliberate planning for reintegration into the competitive field. Although Rhoden passed away before resolving the case, his physical rebuild during legal suspension demonstrated a systematic comeback effort rooted in preserving elite-level conditioning despite career-damaging circumstances. Franco Columbu's collapse began during the 1977 World's Strongest Man competition, where he attempted a heavy refrigerator carry across uneven terrain. The load shifted abruptly, causing a severe dislocation and multiple ligament tears in his left leg. The injury destroyed structural stability in the knee and ankle, preventing him from performing essential bodybuilding movements such as squats, lunges, and heavy deadlifts. Medical assessments at the time predicted permanent mobility impairment, with some experts concluding he would never return to elite physical condition. The prolonged recovery process led to significant atrophy in the quadriceps and calf muscles, disrupting Columbu's trademark lower body density and balance between upper and lower proportions. His training volume decreased sharply, and he temporarily withdrew from bodybuilding competition to focus on rehabilitation. His comeback required rebuilding leg function through targeted strengthening protocols. Columbu used progressive resistance techniques such as controlled range of motion squats, partial deadlifts, and isolated leg extensions to re-engage damaged muscle fibers without overstressing the joint. He also applied advanced rehabilitation methods for the era, including electrical muscle stimulation and high-frequency high-frequency physiotherapy to recover neuromuscular communication. By gradually reintegrating compound lifts, Columbu restored enough size and symmetry to return to the professional stage. In 1981, he won the Mr. Olympia title, demonstrating full functional recovery and structural balance. This victory remains one of the most significant comebacks in bodybuilding history due to the severity of his original injury. Chris Bumstead's collapse began with the discovery of significant health complications during the early years of his classic physique career. Prior to winning his first Mr. Olympia title, Bumstead was diagnosed with an autoimmune kidney condition known as IgA nephropathy. This disease impairs the kidney's ability to filter blood, making high-protein diets, dehydration, and electrolyte fluctuations extremely dangerous. During prep for the 2018 Olympia, his condition caused water retention, difficulty achieving dryness, and rapid fatigue under training stress. He also suffered from severe respiratory infections and immune suppression that impaired workout intensity and recovery. These combined factors resulted in a notable performance decline, and he placed second to Brian Ansley, with analysts questioning whether his health would allow long-term competitive success. Bumstead initiated a structured comeback by redesigning his entire approach to training, nutrition, and recovery. He reduced protein intake to protect renal function, replacing volume-heavy diets with precise macronutrient balancing. Training intensity was modified to emphasize controlled contractions, reduced load spikes, and consistent tempo to avoid systemic stress. Bumstead also integrated year-round blood work monitoring, electrolyte management, and hydration protocols to maintain kidney stability. These adjustments produced improved conditioning, enhanced muscle separation, and better stage fullness. He returned to win the 2019 Olympia and continued refining his physique each year, becoming the most dominant classic physique champion in history. His comeback is defined by adapting a high-performance physique while managing a chronic medical condition. Brandon Curry's collapse occurred early in his professional career, when inconsistent conditioning, lack of structural balance, and inadequate training intensity caused him to fall far below expectations. Despite possessing strong genetics, round muscle bellies, wide clavicles, and a small waist, Curry struggled to bring a complete package to the stage. His lower body lagged significantly behind his upper body, especially in quad sweep, hamstring density, and adductor development. Combined with a softer midsection and inconsistent peak week execution, these weaknesses resulted in poor placings throughout the early 2010s. Sponsors and analysts labeled him an underachiever, and many believed he lacked the discipline to reach elite status. His competitive trajectory declined enough that he briefly stepped away from the sport altogether. Curry's comeback began when he committed to a long-term rebuilding program at Oxygen Gym in Kuwait. The facility's controlled environment allowed him to follow regimented training, nutrition, and recovery protocols with minimal external distraction. Under coaches who emphasized high-volume hypertrophy and strict machine-based leg training, Curry added significant lower body size, improving quad thickness and hamstring separation. His diet was structured around precise carbohydrate cycling to maintain fullness while enhancing midsection tightness. The changes produced a dramatically improved physique with balanced proportions and enhanced back detail. Curry returned to the Olympia stage with renewed structure and conditioning, ultimately winning the 2019 Mr. Olympia title. His transformation from inconsistent competitor to champion represents a full technical and physical comeback. Phil Heath's collapse began after his 7th Mr. Olympia title in 2017, when lingering abdominal issues and multiple hernia repairs compromised his core structure. The surgeries left residual scar tissue that affected abdominal wall control, causing asymmetry and distension during specific poses, particularly the front double biceps and abs and thigh. This structural change reduced his aesthetic score and shifted judges' preference toward competitors with tighter midsections. Concurrently, Heath experienced cumulative joint stress and reduced range of motion in pressing movements, limiting chest thickness and overall upper body fullness. When he returned to defend his title in 2018, these limitations resulted in diminished separation and detail, leading to his defeat by Sean Roden. The loss marked a major decline in his competitive momentum and cast doubt on his ability to return to peak form. Heath's comeback involved rebuilding symmetry and stage presentation through specialized abdominal rehabilitation. He incorporated controlled vacuum training, deep transverse abdominis activation, and reduced intra-abdominal pressure strategies to restore midsection tightness. Weight training intensity was recalibrated to protect surgical areas, emphasizing controlled eccentric loading and reduced peak contractions. His nutrition plan shifted toward anti-inflammatory foods to decrease abdominal bloat loading and water retention. Through these adjustments, Heath restored muscle fullness, regained deltoid roundness, and improved aesthetic balance. His return appearances demonstrated re-established structure and conditioning, positioning him as a viable contender despite prior structural collapse. Hadi Choopan's collapse originated from a prolonged period of political restrictions, visa denials, and international travel complications that repeatedly prevented him from entering the United States to compete. Although he possessed elite-level conditioning and dense muscle maturity, he was unable to participate in major IFBB Pro League events for several years. These absences stalled his progression, limited his exposure, and prevented him from earning Olympia qualifications through standard competitive routes. The uncertainty surrounding his travel status also interfered with off-season planning, as his prep cycles were repeatedly interrupted or canceled. Without the ability to time peak conditioning for major competitions, Choopan's progress plateaued. Analysts viewed his circumstances as a career barrier that could permanently block him from reaching the highest level of the sport. Choopan's comeback began when he finally secured travel clearance in 2019. He immediately restructured his contest preparation around high-density training, emphasizing controlled tempo and shortened rest periods to amplify muscular detail. His conditioning strategy relied on strict sodium regulation, steady-state cardio, and moderated carb loading to avoid spillover while maintaining fullness. With stable competition access, he consistently improved back detail, shoulder width, and overall symmetry. In 2022, he achieved his best combination of density and conditioning, leading to his Mr. Olympia victory. Choopan's return was defined by converting years of restricted opportunity into a rapid progression once travel barriers were removed, proving he could dominate when given consistent competitive access. Dexter Jackson's collapse did not happen through a single catastrophic event, but through the cumulative effects of aging, reduced recovery capacity, and declining competitive returns after decades at the top level. By the mid-2010s, Jackson's physique began to lose the sharp separation and extreme dryness that had defined his competitive identity. His legs showed reduced sweep and outer quad density, and his back development, while still detailed, no longer matched the depth and width of younger competitors. These changes led to lower placings at major shows, despite maintaining precise posing and consistent conditioning. Critics argued that Jackson had reached the natural endpoint of his career, and many believed he would quietly retire as his performance trended downward. The decline created an expectation that he could no longer maintain elite status due to age-related limitations in muscular recovery, hormonal balance, and joint durability. Jackson's comeback was achieved through a recalibrated training approach designed to maximize efficiency rather than intensity. He incorporated higher-volume machine-based sessions to reduce joint strain, strategic deload cycles, and precise carbohydrate timing to achieve renewed muscle fullness. He also adjusted his prep strategy to emphasize gradual conditioning rather than extreme peak week manipulation. These changes restored leg detail, improved midsection tightness, and enhanced upper body roundness. Jackson returned to win multiple pro shows late in his career and extended his competitive longevity far beyond typical expectations. His resurgence allowed him to accumulate more professional victories than any bodybuilder in history, marking the most successful late-career comeback on record.